Hi, boys and girls. I am here at home right now, and I thought of something fun that I would like to add to our day. I know it's evening right now, but this is something I want to start doing for you, and I will try to upload videos here and there, but I thought it would be fun for me to actually read a chapter book with you. This is something that in the classroom we always do at the end of the day, and when we're done with the chapter books, oftentimes we would watch the video or the movie together. So I thought this would be fun and something that you could do and therefore watch at some point during the day, and then I'll read a chapter a day if I possibly can, and we could go from there. So the book I want to read to you is called The Mouse and the Motorcycle. This is by Beverly Cleary, and it's one of my favorite children's book. Okay. The Mouse and the Motorcycle. Chapter 1 is The New Guests. Here we go. Keith, the boy in the rumpled shorts and shirt, did not know he was being watched as he entered room 215 of the Mountain View Inn. Neither did his mother and father, who both looked hot and tired. They had come from Ohio and for 5 days had driven across plains and deserts and over mountains to the old hotel in the California foothills, 25 miles from Highway 40. So ask yourself, who are we talking about? A little boy named Keith, right? And the mother, right? The fourth person entering room 215 may have known he was being watched, but he didn't care. He was Matt, 60 if he was a day, who at the moment was the bellboy. Matt also replaced worn-out light bulbs, renewed washers and leaky faucets, carried trays for people who telephoned room service, and sometimes prevented children from hitting one another. Now Matt's right shoulder sagged with the weight of one of the bags he was carrying. "Here you are, Mr. Grimley. Rooms 215 and 216, he said, setting the smaller of the bags on a luggage rack at the front of the double bed before he opened a door and into the next room. "I expect you and Mrs. Grinley will want room 216. It is a corner room with twin beds and a private bath." He carried the heavy bag into the next room, where he could be heard opening windows. Outside, a chipmunk chattered away in a pine tree, and Chickadee whistled, "Phoebe, Phoebe." The boy's mother looked critically around room 215 and whispered, "I think we should drive back to Main Highway. There must be a hotel with a vacancy sign somewhere. We didn't look long enough." So that bellboy's taking him around to their hotel room. We've got a boy with his parents. "Not another mile," answered the father. "I'm not driving another mile on a California highway on a holiday weekend. Did you see the way that truck almost forced us off the road?" "Dad, did you see the two fellows on motorcycles?" began the boy, and stopped, realizing he shouldn't interrupt an argument. "But this place is so old," protested the boy's mother, "and we have only 3 weeks for our whole trip. We had planned to spend the 4th of July weekend in San Francisco, and we wanted to show Keith as much of the United States as we could." "San Francisco will have to wait, and this is part of the United States. Besides, this used to be a very fashionable hotel," said Mr. Grinley. "People came from miles around to see it." "50 years ago, Mamie," said Mrs. Grinley, "and they came by horse and buggy." The bellboy returned to room 215. "The dining room opens at 6:30, sir. There's ping pong in the game room, TV in the lobby, and croquet on the back lawn. I'm sure you'll be quite comfortable." Matt, who had seen guests come and go for many years, knew there were two kinds: those who thought the hotel was dreadful and awful, and others who thought it was charming. "Of course we will be comfortable," said Mr. Grinley, dropping off some coins into Matt's hands for carrying his bags. "But this big hotel is positively spooky," said Mrs. Grinley. "It's probably full of mice." Matt opened the window wide. "Mice? Oh, no, ma'am. The management wouldn't stand for mice." "I wouldn't stand for a few mice," the boy thought, as he looked around the room and the high ceiling and the nodding pine trees and the carpet with threads and toys. "I kind of like it here," he said. "A whole room to myself. Usually I get a cot in the corner of a motel room." His mother smiled. Then she turned to Matt. "I'm sorry. It's just that it's so hot crossing Nevada, and we're not used to that mountain driving. Back on the highway the traffic was bumper to bumper. I'm sure we shall be quite comfortable." After Matt had gone, closing the door behind him, Mr. Grinley said, "I need a rest before dinner. 400 miles of driving on that mountain traffic. It's too much for me." "And if we're going to stay for a weekend, I better unpack," said Mrs. Grinley. "At least I'll have a chance to do some drip drying." Alone in room 215 and unaware that he was being watched, the boy began to explore. He got down on his hands and knees and looked under the bed. "Hey, I wonder who's being watched." He leaned out the open window as far as he could and greedily inhaled deep breaths of the air. He turned the hot and cold water on and off of the wash basin. Hey, that's like a sink, you guys, a wash basin. And slipped one of the small bars of paper wrapping soap into his pocket. Under the window, he discovered a knothole in the pine wood. When he felt nothing inside, he kind of lost interest. Next, Keith opened his suitcase and took out an apple and several small cars, a sedan, a sports car, and an ambulance about 6 inches long, and a red motorcycle half the length of the cars. He ate the apple noisily in the big chomping bites and then laid the core on the bedside table between the lamp and the telephone. Okay, so he's playing with his cars. He's eating a snack in his hotel room. He gets his own room to himself. Keith began to play, running his cars up and down the bedspread, pretending the strips of the spread were highways and making noises like vroom, vroom, whee, with the motorcycle. Once Keith stopped suddenly and looked quickly around the room as if he expected to see something or someone. But when he saw nothing, he returned to his cars. Vroom, vroom, bang, crash, crash, brrr. The motorcycle came roaring to the scene of the crash. "Keith," his mother called, "time to get washed for dinner." Okay. Keith parked his cars in the straight line by the bedside table beside the telephone where they looked like a row of real cars, just much smaller. The first thing Mrs. Grinley did is that she came to the room and saw the apple core on the table. She dropped it into the metal wastebasket beside the table as she gave several quick little sniffs of the air and said, I don't care what this bellboy says. I'm sure this hotel has mice." "I hope so," said Keith. All right, that was chapter 1 of The Mouse and the Motorcycle. We were introduced to some characters in this chapter. The mom and the dad, the little boy, and the bellboy. Do you remember their names? Can you draw out a picture of what happened in this chapter? Share it with me, okay? All right, guys, I will see you tomorrow for chapter 2.